Hello, friends, and welcome to Your Daily Detroit. It is February 1st, a Wednesday in 2023. I'm Jer Stays, sharing what to know and where to go in Southeast Michigan. And across the table from me is
Shianne Oserini.
Always good to see you.
It is great to be here.
We have such a grab bag of things to talk about this week. I'm not even sure we're going to get to all of it.
Well, we'll try, Jer. We will try.
Let's start with a phone call. I don't know if you've heard or seen anywhere else about this precocious kid, brilliant kid, who created a little bit of heartburn for his parents and his dad, Keith Stonehouse. I happen to know him, and he is joining us on Daily Detroit. What a story, man.
Yes, it is.
All right, so let's walk through this, because I understand that your child is very good with using technology.
Yes, and beyond that, he started reading chapter books and reading with inflection by the age of 3 and doing mathematical equations by the time he was 4.
Wow. Well, I appreciate the reading with inflection for sure. That is awesome. So what exactly happened this night? Because I've been reading a little bit about this in the news and I'm still kind of stunned. Like what exactly happened?
Well, his mom went out for movie night with her girlfriends, and it was father and son night, and his bedtime is anywhere between 8 and 8:30. He is 6, and I gave him my phone. He has a game that he plays, an educational game that he plays on my phone. We usually give him about 30 minutes, and I gave him that to play, and he wandered off and he was playing it. And I said, "Okay, Mason, it's time for bed. Your 30 minutes is up." And surprisingly, he was really good about it. "Okay, here's your phone. I'm going to go up to bed." And I tucked him in, and no fight, no questions, nothing. And I thought, wow, this is nice. And I'm tucking him in, and the doorbell rings, and his bedroom window is right above the front door, per se. And I see the lights come from a car, and the doorbell rings, and I look out, and he jumps out of bed. "Who's at the door? Who's at the door?" And I thought, wow, he's pretty excited about who's at the door. And my wife owns a bakery, and she sets up weddings and events, and people every weekend are dropping off stuff that they rented or used for the, cake towers and decorations. And I didn't think anything of it, because that happens every weekend, that people drop off stuff from the weddings. So the lady drops off a large bag, and so I said, "It's a lady dropping off stuff from your mom's wedding stuff." "Oh, okay." And he seemed kind of sad about it. I thought, that's strange. So I go downstairs and I get the bag, and it's not a bag of stuff from a wedding. It's a giant bag of food.
What?
What is this? So I grab it. It's from Leo's Coney Island, and it's all kinds of chili cheese fries and ice cream and chicken rolled up sandwiches and all kinds of stuff. And I thought, what? So the first thing I thought is, Kristen her and the girls must have ordered food, and they're going to get it when they get home. So I put it on the counter, and I go back to my show, and all of a sudden the doorbell's ringing, and I see lights coming in the driveway, and I go, it's more food, and it's another, and it's more, and the bell keeps ringing, and we have a Ring doorbell, and it's over. And I wasn't looking at my phone at this time. My phone was off in the other side of the house, and I wasn't thinking anything of it. And more food, and I keep, what is going on? And giant bags of food, and little bags of food, and giant bags of food. And I intercepted the one guy, because you don't communicate with them. They just drop it off and walk away. And I said, "Are you bringing me food?" He said, "Yeah, I'm bringing you a bunch of chicken shawarma sandwiches." I said, "What?" I felt bad for the kid. I'm kind of yelling at him, and he's like, "You ordered food. I'm bringing it to you. It's not a complicated concept." And I take the food and I put it, and it hits me. Wait a minute. He had my phone. So I go look at my phone, and it's never ending scrolling Grubhub updates of, "Your food is being prepared. We got your food. It's on its way. It's delivered. Your food is on its way. It's delivered. It's delivered. It's on its way. It's delivered." And nonstop cars are rolling into the driveway, one after another. And I put 2 and 2 together that he was the one that, obviously was ordering this food. I proceeded to go upstairs and reprimand him, and I'm yelling, but at a nice way, I guess you would say, not
parental
harsh.
stern, maybe.
Yeah. And he interrupts me halfway through my lecture and says, Dad. And he raises his hand up in my face. "Dad." I said, "What?" "Mason, what do you want?" He says, "Did the pepperoni pizzas come yet, Dad?" I long, because there was no pizzas yet. So now I'm thinking there's more coming. I step outside of the room and the doorbell keeps ringing. And I'm like, oh my God, it's never ending. And I go to my bank app and I look and it's just dinging, dinging, dinging. Money's coming out. I'm going, what is happening? And then I look and Chase had ended it with a fraud alert for $439 for pizzas from Happy's Pizza. So the madness had stopped at 1,000. And can you imagine if $439 worth of pizzas would have came on top of 5 or 20-piece jumbo shrimps, endless chili cheese fries, sandwiches, grape leaves, rice, ice cream? It was unbelievable.
It sounds like when a kid is a little too quiet and you're wondering what are they up to because there's no noise. And that's the time to be very, very afraid.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I have to ask you this before I let you go. Of all the things that got ordered, what were you the most excited about? Like, we don't have to tell him, but like of all the food that came, what are 1 or 2 things that you were most excited about?
I have a weakness, and it's called ice cream. So we'll go with the ice cream. And luckily, I had caramel topping in the fridge, so I treated myself for the $1,000 hit with the ice cream that he ordered. That was about it. The rule was he was not allowed to eat any of the stolen food, as we called it. Dad, can I have some of that shrimp that I ordered? I said, absolutely not. The next day, Dad, I really want those chili cheese fries I ordered. No, you are not getting any of the stolen food. And we had my in-laws come over. We had a neighbor came over and bought a bunch of shrimp because he was having people over. It was quite the debacle.
That's amazing. Well, Keith, it's so good to talk to you. I know it's been a while, but glad to catch up with you. And what a great story. It's one of those things, like I think about the movie Anchorman when his dog Baxter gets in the fridge and he goes, I'm supposed to be mad at you, but I'm also kind of impressed at the same time. And I understand being mad, but I'm also very impressed with this kid.
Yes. My anger was at about a 10 that night, and now I'm in confusion stage of how to deal with it at this point. So,
well, thank you so much for your time on Daily Detroit, and all of you over there, take care.
Yeah, you too. Thank you.
Now, I understand that a few episodes ago inspired a couple of things. One of them in the food zone.
Yeah, when you and Devin were talking about Calexico closing and how before Calexico opened it was the Olga's, I actually was working downtown in the First National Building when Olga's opened. So I went to Olga's a lot, and I have obviously lived here a long time. I have very fond memories.
Olga's is one of those chains that's been around for a while and was really embedded and still is. Lots of people still have a lot of affection for Olga's, but it's not talked about as much.
No, it's not. But that made me have such a huge craving for Olga's that it was all I could think about for a week. And finally, on Friday, my husband and I ended up having to eat really late at night for some reason. Our lives are mayhem right now, and so it was we didn't eat dinner, but our kids did, and it was going on 8:30, 9 o'clock at night by the time we were getting out of the house to eat. And I was like, what is open? And the only thing I could think of was Olga's. So we went there.
Which one?
We went to the one on Southfield and 12 Mile.
Well, it's interesting because in my inbox is a thing about snacker wings. Did you try snacker wings? Apparently, they're putting the snacker flavoring on wings.
I did not check out the snacker wings. I might have seen it on the app, but I was narrowed in on my grilled chicken Olga, and that's all I wanted. That and the snackers and the zucchini fries.
Oh, okay. Well, so I'm curious because I'm actually a boneless wings fan. Some people very much disagree with me on this.
I am also a boneless wing fan, with the exception of when I was pregnant with my youngest, because he craved buffalo wings. I despise eating any kind of meat off of a bone. It doesn't matter what kind of meat it is. I don't like it, specifically chicken wings. I hate it, but I ate it when I was pregnant.
Now, will you try Snackers wings?
I will give it a shot.
Because it's a good seasoning.
It is a good seasoning. I'm open to trying it, and I think I saw that there's 3 different flavors, correct?
And it comes with ranch.
Okay, I can get down with that.
Another thing I wanted to bring up, because our inbox has been crazy, Shianne, and you produce the show.
Yes.
So you also have been seeing the amount of feedback, and I didn't think we could wait till Friday for the feedback on the Friday show. It was intense, like letters and letters and letters and letters about the work from home kind of thing. And I can kind of sum them up in a couple of ways. One, people who think that they should work from home. It's a whole lot easier, especially if they're parents, but it's a big thing for them. Two, points about culture and promotion. I think a lot of people felt like there is no culture or promotion. And so therefore, Devin's point is moot. And then others who are like, hey, I work on a line or I work something like that. I feel like everybody should be in there. And then some were like, well, I work on a line, but if I could work from home, I would, so I don't hold that against people. Shianne, I know you had a lot of thoughts about this. You're going through that and you're like, Jer, I need a minute.
Yeah. I'm lucky because I can work from anywhere doing what we do, right? We can produce a show anywhere. But I know specifically for my husband, he works in IT. He only has to go to work 1 day a week right now for his job. And he loves it. He loves being able to work from home. He can go in more if he wanted to, but it's not mandatory. And he likes the flexibility. He does get plenty of stuff done. There is not a productivity gap. Now, don't get me wrong. There are times when there are productivity gaps, but the flexibility.
I mean, you have 2 children.
We have 2 children, right? Like I'm here right now recording, which means my husband will have to go and pick up our kid from school, right? But he doesn't really take a lunch most days. He eats at his desk and works through lunch.
Now, has he gotten any raises?
Yes.
Okay.
He could continue up the chain of command if he wanted to. He chooses not to because he likes to be home at night and he likes to be involved in our family. So this gives him the most flexibility for what he's doing. For my experience, before becoming a producer here, I worked in a lot of places, right? I worked for an airline. I worked at a law firm. I've worked all over. And this idea that there is a work culture, I don't necessarily think that that's the right word, right?
Okay, tell me more.
Because it feels a little gaslighty. It feels like we're all family here, right? And that to me means we're going to try and like take as much from you as we possibly can with giving the least amount back to you. It seems very unbalanced because they expect so much from you, but when you need something from them, they're not willing to give it.
In your other jobs, did you find that culture was talked about but never really executed?
Oh, yeah, all the time. Or was only executed for certain people. It was a lot of imbalance. And that's one of the reasons why I never want to go back to corporate world, because I can't handle that. To me, I'm not a good fit for corporate life.
So for you, you find that your experience and a number of other listeners, they're feeling like a real disconnect. Like there's this talk of, we're going to take care of you, all this other stuff. Now, I think about a good friend of mine who works as well remotely, has gotten multiple raises and things and promotions while being remote.
Yeah.
And so I think that there's kind of a disconnect there. Like I'm not saying either side is wrong, because I think depending on your lived experience, that's how it's going to be. But a lot of listeners pushed back and said, look, I've never talked to my CEO. I've never talked to any of my managers. Like that doesn't exist to me. That option doesn't exist to me.
Right.
And that was kind of like a clear thing to me. Like we got to talk about this, because I think there's this thing in the business press and whatever. I actually used to work in staffing in a former life, and the term was being an employer of choice.
Yeah.
And being an employer of choice means people want to be there. Mm-hmm. And it's not about ping pong tables. In fact, when I see a ping pong table or I see a pool table, I see a trap to make you work extra hours.
Or a sleeping pod.
Right. And that was something that depending on the kind of worker that you want to attract, depending on what kind of culture you want to create, I'm not a big fan of those things in offices.
I do think that there's also a generational gap in this whole in office, out of office, right? I do think that specifically Gen Z, now that they're coming into the workforce, they're saying, I'm going to act my wage. So if you're not going to pay me what I'm worth, I'm not going to work here anymore. And I think that kind of throws older generations who are in upper management into a tailspin, because they can't throw we're giving you all these benefits, right? The health benefits and all this other like supposed benefits for working here. If you're not paying me what I'm worth, why will I stick around? And if this isn't a good company to work for, why am I going to stay here?
Now, do you think that your husband will ever go back to working in more than a day or two a week?
He might.
Is that on the horizon for his, I won't out the company, but it is a large company with many thousands of employees?
I haven't heard whether or not they're planning on doing that.
So do you believe in the collaboration points from your experience? Because for me, I do think that there is something about collaboration. That's why everybody, whenever we can, we try to get into the studio. We try to write newsletters like across the table from each other. What do you see as the difference there? I look at it and go, it's so much better when we're talking and everybody's in person.
I think because of what we do, absolutely. In-person collaboration is beneficial for us because we are a team that is creating something daily.
For me, when it comes to employers, know what you're going into.
Yeah.
Let's get into some news. Now, Detroit council member Angela Callaway has a proposal to ban cashless retail in the city of Detroit. Now, this has been something that has risen up across the country with the rise of COVID. Yeah. This has been a big deal where, cash is difficult to clean, all that other stuff. And then credit cards just easier to process. Some would argue that, it reduces the risk of theft.
Yes.
Because you're not dealing with cash. Also, let's not forget here, not dealing with cash lowers a cost. It lowers a time cost and it lowers a pain in the tail cost.
Right.
Because you got to count the cash. You got to take the cash to the bank. You got to do stuff with the cash.
Right.
Her proposal would ban cashless retail in the city of Detroit, so they would have to take cash. It would not ban things like at Little Caesars Arena where you can take cash and get like a debit card, like for no fee, and then use that to spend around, which I get that as a middle ground. I understand that.
Yeah.
But this really came to a head with places like Plum Market in downtown Detroit. It's right across the street from the Coleman Young Municipal Center, which is both city council and the mayor and parts of, I believe, Wayne County.
Yeah.
What do you think of this? Because I have a very strong memory from my childhood of the early days of cashless everything. But I wonder what you think, because I see multiple sides of this thing. I see why businesses are like, hey, this is going to be easy. But also a number of cities have said that this is a social justice issue.
I do not like cashless only options. Like you said, I see it from a business owner's perspective, but it is a social justice issue because not everybody has a debit card or a credit card. And when 1/4 of your residents in the city of Detroit don't have a credit card or debit card, that means that they can't spend their money. Let's remember, cash is legal tender. Why can't I spend my money here?
Well, and with Detroit, it just settles in just how economically disadvantaged parts of the city are and how institutionally there are these gaps. Mm-hmm. There are definitely groups trying to fill those gaps, but it's nowhere near enough. There's just a lot of issues. And especially when, you've got a median household income in like the range of like $32,000 a year.
Yeah.
The other thing to mention too is like poverty doesn't have borders.
No.
There's poverty in the suburbs too. Now I'll tell a story from when I was a kid. I was really saving for this toy at this toy store near where I grew up. And it was the early day, like credit cards were really like slamming into everything, and they were early cashless business.
Yeah.
I remember being a kid, and I went up there on the bus with my dad to this toy store on the east side, and it was something I really wanted. And I had saved my own like allowance money, my work money, all that other stuff. Get in there, and I can't buy it. I can't buy it because Dad doesn't have a credit card because we don't have that kind of money. Note, we took the bus to the toy store, but it was something that we really wanted. There was no bending. And I remember to this day, many years later, the emotion that I felt that I was shut out of something that I had earned. Mm-hmm. I still remember crying to this day about it.
Yeah.
Because I was a kid. Like, I don't understand these things. And something my dad told me is that this is an example that no matter how hard you work, sometimes where you're from determines how people think about you and if they will ever accept you. Mm-hmm. And I've had to work through a lot of that.
Yeah.
But when you grow up with that level of no money and you figure out how to do these things, or you try and then the doors closed on you, that's something we need to look at, right? Like, because here's the deal. Even if it's 10%, people will say, oh, it's just an education. The doors need to be open.
Mm-hmm.
And my biggest criticism of Detroit and Metro Detroit, people say all the time, people need to pull themselves up by the bootstraps. So often there are no boots or straps.
Yeah.
Because we think everybody lives like we do. And I will never forget that memory for the rest of my life. And I don't want anyone else to have that memory either. And I tell that story because I think there's a lot of people who wouldn't realize that I would have that kind of origin story.
Yeah.
So I put myself in their shoes going, I'm catching the bus for the Woodward. Yeah, Plum Market's expensive. Yeah, they have for a while, I don't know if they still do, like the champagne vending machine.
Yeah.
But if I can afford an overpriced sandwich while I'm waiting for the bus, shouldn't I be able to get one?
I've had a lot of financial difficulties as well growing up, and I didn't have a debit card. And I was in this weird phase a couple years ago where I closed my bank account, but I have a joint account with my husband. But I had just never ordered a debit card for our account for some reason. And then I was downtown doing a work thing. And I went over to Moots to get a slice of pizza, and I ordered it, and he packaged it up, and I went to pay, and he's like, oh, we're cashless. No, they do take cash now. But this was early days when they had just opened, and I was like, I have no card. I only have cash. And he was like, oh, well, sorry. And I'm like, well, I can't get this then. And I left. And then you know what I did? I walked around the corner, and I crossed Woodward, and I went to Slices.
R.I.P. Slices.
And I handed them my legal tender, and I said, I would like a slice of pizza, please, and a pop.
And I think it reinforces this idea of two Detroits.
Mm-hmm.
If you literally cannot pay to participate in it.
Yeah.
I have word of a new Ferndale business. Well, not a new Ferndale business, new to Ferndale.
Yeah. What is it?
Metropolis Cycles. They're down in Corktown. They're going to be opening up a second location in an old market. It was called Ken's Market. It was around for, I think, decades over there. I think it's kitty corner away from Ferndale Project. Livernois, just north of 8 Mile.
Yeah.
If you remember Ken's.
I do.
You're over that way.
Yeah, I do remember Ken's. I drive down Livernois quite a lot. So it's nice to see that something is going into that old party store.
And another bike shop, which I think Ferndale's a great place for that kind of thing. It's something where that community really embraces that, that whole area is becoming more and more walkable and bikeable. And
yep.
I kind of get why you'd want to have access there and, getting off 8 Mile right near Woodward.
Yeah.
Those are all things that make a lot of sense. It's good to see these businesses growing. And then also I heard that Taystee Burgers is going to be opening up in Little Caesars Arena.
Oh, that's really awesome.
And I did not realize this, but not only did they have their Dearborn and Dearborn Heights spots, they also have one in Ann Arbor. I did not know that. Now, you don't know Taystee Burgers. It's the best place to get a burger in a gas station around town. They were featured in Eater Detroit. They've got the nacho burger.
They do.
Very tasty.
I mean, with a name like Taystee Burgers, I hope that it's tasty.
Wouldn't that be disappointing? And with that, I'm Jer Stays.
And I'm Shianne Osserini.
Thank you so much for listening to Your Daily Detroit. As always, feedback, dailydetroit@gmail.com. Remember that you are somebody, and we'll see you around Detroit. Talk tomorrow.
I love me some Snackers.